Competition, killing competition. I want it all on focus. Let's go and get it. Go and get it. Set them focus, say let's go and get it.
All right, guys, welcome back to Pro MMA Insider. My name is Alex Iserman. Had a couple weeks off there. Walt Harris isn't with us tonight. He just became a father, so congratulations to him. We'll hopefully get him back next week on the show. But we're going to be doing a solo tonight, but we have some great guests joining us tonight. Later in the hour, we're going to be joined by the voice himself, Mike Sciavello. He's going to be talking to us about, he's kind of going viral right now with his My Anus commentary from this last week's RFA event. But first we're going to talk to a guy coming off a really, really hard night of work there. It took all of 18 seconds for him to dispatch at Bellator 93 of Travis, I'm pronouncing the name wrong, Wiuff, but I'm not going to try to pronounce it the right way. But anyway, Ryan Martinez, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us tonight, buddy. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, man. Like I said, it wasn't exactly, the hardest night of work you ever had, 18 seconds. You ever imagine you'd get a victory that quickly over someone of that caliber?
Nah, man, it was a great victory, but the camp leading up to it was the hardest camp I've ever been into, so it was a blessing in disguise.
Well, yeah, so I think that's the thing, right? You work hard in camp, so you don't have to, so the fights are easier, right?
Yeah. That's how it's supposed to go.
Yeah, exactly. You better get beat up in practice and get beat up on TV in front of thousands of people. So, like I said, congratulations, 18 seconds. What a night anyway. I mean, did you get to see any of the other fights? I mean, what a crazy card. Nothing. I mean, other than the main event there, all the fights were quick knockouts.
Yeah, I got to watch every single one of the fights just because it happened so fast. They were looking for fillers in between the fights. So the undercard there was like 4 or 5 fights, but the undercard was so fast also that when the main card hit TV, they had to bridge the gap, between the main card fights. So I'm sure almost every single undercard fight got seen on TV also. Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. I can't think of a single card that had so many quick and fast knockouts, and like you said, I think they could. I don't know what they did, but they could almost put every single fight on the card on the televised portion. It was pretty crazy. And when I saw you, it was kind of you guys are built. I mean, he's taller than you and stuff, but two big bald dudes going at it. Typically for say like, all right, which one's getting the hell beat out of? And then I saw it was Travis, and knowing you a little bit, I was happy for that. But just talk to us about. The strategy there, I guess, didn't last very long, but just, walk us through the whole 18 seconds of the fight.
Well, we touch gloves and whatnot, and, usually I like the first round to kind of fill my opponent out. But, he threw a couple jabs, and I parried him, and then I threw my own jab, and I caught him in the eye. But I also noticed when I threw my jab, he was trying to pair it with his hand, with his lead hand. So with that being said, after I caught him in the eye with my first jab, I flicked a lazy jab, and then I came over the top with the overhand left, and then I followed it up with a hook, left hook, and then he was already done. He was against the cage, and rather than just sit there and watch him against the cage, I might as well figure, I might as well end it right now, and I hit him with one solid hook, to the face, and it was over.
Right. Now, that was his third consecutive loss. He's going on a little bit of a rough streak here, but, he's 68-17. Obviously, quite an accomplished fighter. He's been in there with tons of people. But, I'm sure that's, would you consider that your biggest victory? And with someone with so much experience, did you really expect the fight to be, I guess no fight's easy, like I said, or like you said, putting the work in before was the hardest part, but did you expect the fight itself to be, so easy?
Realistically, I thought I was going to be in for a grappling match. I mean, he doesn't know what kind of caliber of wrestler I am, and him being, an All-American or whatnot, we focused a lot of the camp, grappling off of the wall, off of the cage, single legs, double legs, top, bottom, side control, just like in case he was trying to rush me to the cage to take me down. I did, a lot of my striking with Jeff, but there was really no game plan as far as the striking goes. It was just if I see an open shot, take it and follow up. So that's basically what I did. I mean, his losses, he didn't lose to no chumps, you know. He lost to the Bellator light heavyweight champion right now, Attila Bey. You know, he got caught with a left uppercut that, you know, rocked him. And then when he was in Abu Dhabi, he fought a gangster dude. Like, the dude was sick. He's like, I think 27-3. So, you know, it's not like he's losing to slouches.
I mean, yeah, he's 22-3. Looking at him right now. Yeah. Well, I don't know. He's 21-3. He beat Bob Sapp. I'm not counting that. But yeah, 21-3. He's no joke.
Yeah, but you see what I mean? Like, it's not like he's losing to slouches. And then I come along where, you know, nobody knows me, and people didn't even give me the benefit of the doubt. I was written off like weeks before. 98% he had a victory chance of beating me. You know, that's kind of sad when 98% of the people that are voting that he's going to kick my butt, and then all of a sudden, you know, I knock him out. It's just like, whoa. Pump the brakes right there.
You know, it's kind of funny. I was following around the forums, you know, talking about the fights, and kind of the same thing. Most of the people thought, you know, that you were going to lose a fight, and then afterwards they're all bitching about all the mismatches. Like, you know, if everyone thought you were going to lose, how the hell did a mismatch when you win in 18 seconds, you know? But, you know, like you said, I mean, you know, running down this guy's, you know, fights, I mean, he has fought everyone from, you know, he fought King Mo, he fought Travis Fulton, he fought Jeff Monson, he fought, you know, like the guys you said. I mean, he's just fought tons and tons and tons of people. I mean, like I said, he's got 85 professional fights, so he's definitely Rico Rodriguez, tons of guys in there. So, you know, like you said, no, everyone was expecting you to lose. You didn't, and not only did you win, you won in a dominating fashion. So what do you think that does for you going forward here? I mean, you know, how does that elevate you in the world of MMA?
Well, I got a bunch of new fans.
Twitter's looking good, right?
Twitter, Facebook is what blew up. But hopefully it cements me a spot in the tournament, the next tournament coming up, because I feel that, you know, moving to Vegas, my training's really elevated to the next level. You know, back in Colorado, I was training with guys that were 160, 170 pounds. Don't get me wrong, my coach, you know, he was good technical and as far as that type of stuff goes, but it's hard to find decent heavyweights to roll with that have your type of work ethic. And, like, literally that Saturday before I left, Roy broke me. Like, we had 5 hard rounds of sparring at Syndicate, and these guys just kept rotating in on me, and damn, I wanted to quit. It sucked. Like, I was down on myself, beating myself up all day. Like, I can't believe I sparred that badly, you know, kind of second-guessing myself. And then I was like, you know what? I go, if I can take 5 rounds with these chumps, you know, I can take 5 rounds with anybody. And that's basically what my mindset was. You know, they knew I was broke, but that's just the key. The key is to break you and keep on you to see how you react. And I guess I reacted pretty good.
Well, yeah, backing up a little bit here, that was my next thing I was going to get into was your training. But, yeah, I definitely don't think you'll have to worry about having a spot in the heavyweight tournament. I'm pretty sure that the invitation will be there for you. So we're looking forward to that. But yeah, I mean, you know, so you moved here to Vegas recently. When did you come here? Explain the move, you know. Well, I guess first go back, you know, what were you doing in Colorado? You know, explain the camp, you know, and you said, you know, a lot of smaller guys, there was good training, but, you know, no big guys. But explain what it was in Colorado, and then why you felt you needed to make the move out here to Vegas to reach your potential.
Well, originally I was based out of a jiu-jitsu camp in Loveland, Colorado. It was Infinite Mixed Martial Arts. It's a Hoist Gracie school, and I was doing Gracie jiu-jitsu. And, you know, focused a lot on grappling, you know, gi jiu-jitsu, that type of stuff. And the biggest guy they had there, he was 6'7", 350 pounds. That was my partner. That's who I rolled with every day. And, you know, it just got to the point where I needed more. I needed, you know, more sparring partners, more workout partners. And I had my boxing coach on the side. He was an Olympic alternate, you know, as far as his coaching went. And, you know, I worked mitts with him, and we traveled to different gyms just boxing sparring. But like I said, the heavyweight talent out in Colorado, it's far and few between. I mean, Grudge pretty much picked up all the heavyweight talent in Colorado, and I was having a tough time getting into there to get any work. So it was kind of whack to me. And, you know, I got an invitation to come up here to help Roy out for his Carwin camp for the Ultimate Fighter finale. And so I flew out here. I got to meet, Roy for the first time, got to meet his wife for the first time. And then, we just clicked after that. For the next few weeks, we were training hard, balls to the wall, grappling, sparring. And then, the day before I left, I was just kind of like, I'd like to be out here for my camps. And then his wife kind of put the bug in my eye. She's like, oh, well, you should talk to your wife about moving out here. And, I went back home to Colorado, and I talked to my wife, Britt, and I was like, hey, Britt, what do you think about moving to Vegas? And, of course, she didn't think I was serious because I had just gotten back, and I just said that right away. And, after the holidays, we sat down. I'm like, we really should move. And just so happens that Roy's condo became available, right when we were deciding to move. So it all basically worked out. After Christmas, I had 3 days to pack my stuff in a Penske truck and drive down here, and that's basically what we did.
Yeah, so how did your wife handle it? I mean, of course, people think that all the fighters can just move around easily, but obviously in your case, you had a family, you had roots there in Colorado, so and as a fighter, I'm sure having family support as opposed to them, not supporting you is crucial to your success. So how did they take it? And you have kids as well.
I really don't have family. I have family in Colorado, but I don't talk to a lot of them. Just, personal issues between my parents and whatnot. I have my brother that supports me a lot, and of course her family supports me 100%. They've been nothing but helpful for me. But it was kind of an easy decision to up and leave because it's always nice here in Vegas. We don't endure the harsh winters like Colorado. We don't get 2 feet of snow up here, and we don't get slick streets and whatnot. So, the hardest part was seeing how the kids adjusted, but as soon as we got here and stuck our son in school and then got my daughter in daycare, they just decided that they loved it, and it was just a big blessing. Everybody likes it here. Ain't nothing better than a happy family.
Right. Well, you only been here a couple months. You're saying we when you talk about Vegas, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's I live here too. It's a cool place, and if you come here with the right mentality, you don't let the bad things of Vegas take control of you. It's a great place to be. So you get here. Tell us, the first time you go into the Mayweather gym, hook up with Jeff, and the other places you're working at, and the other people. You have Roy there. You have, tell us about some of the other guys that you're working with as well.
Yeah, the first, I met Jeff right before I had left back to Colorado, during Roy's camp. I hadn't really got a chance to talk to him, but I seen what he was doing for Roy as far as his mitt work and strategy goes, and I was like, wow, I'd really like to work with this dude. And so, after getting settled in, unpacked and whatnot, the first actual practice I had was with King Mo, Roy Nelson, and then there was a couple guys from AKA that were down, and we did the whole grappling stuff and whatnot. And then I finally talked to my manager. I go, hey, you need to get me in with Jeff. We need to see what we could work out, or how it goes or whatnot. And he was like, yeah, for sure. So we booked a fight, and right away, I started working with Jeff. And at first it's kind of hard to take on a new coach because you're so used to doing stuff your way. But Jeff's cool. He didn't try to reform me or remold me or anything. He just basically took what I already had and just added to it. And I'm telling you, working with this dude, it's just been nothing but leaps and bounds. Mayweather knows his stuff, and just being able to go to, the Mayweather gym where every fighter in there has the same mentality. We're all in there for one reason, and is to get better and to be a world champion one day. And that's the best atmosphere anybody could be. So I'm just blessed to be around them type of people that are as hungry as I am.
Right. I was actually in the car with Jeff when he got a text from Mike Kogan, your manager, and he was saying, this guy Ryan, he couldn't remember your name. He said he's some guy. He was in jail for a long time. This guy there. I was like, Ryan Martinez. He said, yeah. He said, I'm working with him now. So yeah, I was actually there when he texted, and Mike told him he was going to be working with you. But yeah, I mean, you guys seem to have clicked really well. And the thing about Jeff, and a lot of people have a misconception about is with and the one thing I noticed in the gym there at the Mayweather Boxing Club is that everybody's super supportive of each other. I mean, all the MMA guys, and it was kind of funny because, up until, the last, 4 or 5 months or so, it was strictly boxing gym, and then all of a sudden we have all these MMA guys in there. And but it's been nothing but support. I mean, guys supporting each other, boxing helping MMA, MMA helping boxing. I mean, guys commenting on each other's fights, supporting each other, rooting for each other. It's a really cool atmosphere. And like you said, Jeff doesn't, and the good thing about Jeff, I think that helps with MMA is that he knows that boxing, what he's teaching you, it's not the end all for MMA because there's obviously a difference between your sport and boxing.
Yeah, there's a difference, but I think what the boxers started to realize was that all of our fights end up standing up. And there's very few fights where you see nowadays where a fight, ends with a head kick. There's like maybe 1 out of 100 that ends with a head kick. So everybody's basically boxing before it goes to the ground. And like, with that being said, the boxers at the gym, they could utilize us MMA guys as far as sparring goes because we all need sparring, right? So, we get the function of sparring professional boxers that are high caliber, taking punches or whatnot, being MMA guys and learning how to react to these guys. And then they're getting guys that with a never stop, never quit attitude, that just keep coming and coming and coming. So basically it works out for both the boxers and the MMA guys. Plus, another thing I like about the gym is nobody in there has a big old ego. Like, everything's cool. We're all on the same level. They all check their egos at the door, and we're there to work.
Yeah, and that's you hit it right there because, you think, like I said, to Mayweather, you think, oh, well, there's going to be a bunch of arrogant pricks in there. But, I was really surprised when I first hooked up there, how friendly, how inviting everyone was. And, I mean, is there anyone particular that you've clicked with in the gym there or anyone that, has really been helpful to you at all? Or
Man, I think I click with all of them. Zach Cooper's cool. He's a little character, He likes to bullshit and whatnot. Just seeing the way that, they all support each other. Like, when the Money team went undefeated in their last Showtime card, that was a blessing. They all came back to the gym and it was back to work. It wasn't like, I'm going to take a month off. I did this, I did that. Nah, they were all back in the gym ready to work. And that just shocked me right there because usually, you win a world championship, you're going to take some time off and go and flaunt whatever you did. But, nah, they were all back in the gym doing the same thing we were doing.
Yeah. Well, of course, I know Zach, he definitely is a character, and he always had shit for you. But I'm sure, you have to get back to him and say, he took all of this three rounds this past weekend to win his fight, so you took 18 seconds. So, you have something on there. You got to ask him what took him so long.
Yeah, he was telling me that his guy tried to Superman punch him, and we just busted out laughing. We're like, dude, you got Superman punched in a boxing match?
Well, that's something you could probably teach him some proper form on then, right?
Yeah, I don't like Superman punches. Mo could teach him about that. Mo knocked the dude I fought out with a Superman punch.
Yeah, that was his first fight, I believe. That was pretty crazy, having your first fight against somebody with that many victories or fights under their belt. So you mentioned Roy, you mentioned Mo. Who are some of the other guys out here? I mean, I know you had the Greco-Roman guy, but, who else have you been able to train with out here that's, like I said, like you have said, told me before, there's a lot of big guys out here, so who are some of the other guys you're working with?
Blagoya Ivanov came into our camp a few times. He was pretty steady with us for a few weeks, and then he kind of fell off. I don't know if he's training somewhere else or whatnot or doing his own thing, but he came in and, he's a good, solid body to roll with. He's big, and he knows his grappling, too. And then he's got a little sidekick. His name is Barney, I think. I don't know Barney's last name. He's a little white boy, but dude is legit. His wrestling's good. His sambo's good. He's a lot lighter than us, but he works in good, and, we learn a lot from him, too.
All right.
And then,
go ahead.
I was trying to think of, there was a couple other guys I'm forgetting, but I just can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, there's the Greco-Roman guy, I forget his name, that he was there, the Olympic guy.
Yeah, Boogie came in. He was throwing us all around. I mean, this dude's 190 pounds, and Roy was laying on his stomach, and the dude picked Roy up from the ground, laying on his stomach, and almost threw him. He could have threw him if he wanted to, but he was just showing us how easy it was. Ain't none of us been able to do that yet, so he's he's a rare breed, man.
Yeah, I was actually on the receiving end of that. Mo made him do that to me. That was not very enjoyable. I'm 210 pounds, and he just picked me up like nothing over his shoulder. And actually, I put a video on YouTube. He did to Rodney Chrysler, one of the boxing coaches up there, and he's I'm sure 20, 30 pounds heavier than Roy is, and he did it to him too. So yeah, that dude's crazy strong for sure.
Yeah.
Moving, just kind of going back here then, your life is, for those that don't know you, because, I mean, honestly, no offense to you, but no one did know you until this past week, or at least, most of the casual fans surely didn't. So the one thing they do know, and it's been mentioned, and they showed the little thing on Bellator with your stat thing, there that, you'd been a drug dealer, you'd been to jail, and all that kind of stuff. So let's just, kind of back up a little bit, what got you changed, and well, first talk about what you were doing, and then what brought about the change in your life.
It was right after I won my my last state championship in high school. I was supposed to buckle down and get ready for college and do this and that, but I started partying real hard, and I had a lot of connections, just me being who I was, as far as, I'm not hard to get along with, and I knew a ton of people at the time. And, first I started off slanging weed. And, I made good money doing weed and whatnot. I used to get high, slang tons of weed, and then all of a sudden, like, the partying became into raving, and, I was slanging powders. Well, back then, the ice form of meth hadn't been around yet. It was just the crank. So I ran into some people that, that had this new product, and they just dropped a shit ton on me. And they're like, see what you can do with this, and, holler if you need more or whatnot. So, I took whatever they gave me, and basically it went so fast. They were like, wow. And the money, it kept coming and coming and coming. And, at first it was all about the money, it was about making as much money as you can to go party even harder, and do whatever you were doing. And then soon after that, came the partying with the drug. I never did it when I was making all kinds of money. And then all of a sudden, one day we were like, oh, you might as well try it. And I'm telling you, I tried it and I was hooked right away. And so then I started partying real hard, using the drug, making that money or whatnot. And it really didn't matter because the drug was limitless for me. I could always get as much as I ever wanted. And the money was always there, so, I just became a carefree type of dude, didn't give a crap about nothing, just getting high and making money. And then I ended up catching some charges. I got, my first charge was attempted possession with intent to distribute, meaning they found a lot of drugs on the premises, but it wasn't on me, so they couldn't convict me with it. But because nobody would say anything and it was right by me, they right away assumed. And I'm sure I could have beat it in court had I dragged out the trial or whatnot, but I just wanted to get it done right away. So I pled to attempted possession with intent to distribute. And I ended up getting, I think, the total amount of time I did for all that would have probably been 8 years, in and out of jail. And then by the time I got to prison, I did 3.5 years in prison and then 2 years on parole.
Well, and then that's just, incredible. I spent a week in there one time in jail, and that was more than enough for me. So I can't imagine all that time there. So what? And the one thing, going back to Jeff, he told me the other day, and, neither of us know you that well. We just known you the last couple of months and talked to you. He knows you better than I do, but I've talked to you a few times, and he's like, man, he just doesn't seem like he could ever went to jail for anything. He's too nice a guy. It doesn't seem like he has the person, like the hard, prison kind of, mentality and attitude. So what was it that changed your life and said, okay, I'm done with this. I'm going to do what's right?
I've always been the same easygoing, good dude to get along with, but, it takes a lot to make me mad, and as soon as I'm pushed past that point, of course I'm going to blow up, and bad stuff happens. But, what my turning point is the day I went to prison. That's what changed my life around. I had a baby girl out there on the street that needed me, that her mom abandoned her with my parents, and, like, the first thing I felt after I, sobered up and kicked, it was like, man, I need to get out there and be a father to my daughter. And, from then on, I took advantage of prison. I took it as a learning experience to where, I learned how to weld in prison. I was running every day, powerlifting, and then going to work. So I had my own routine going to kill my time. I did my time. I didn't let my time do me. And that was the biggest thing for anybody in there. You know, of course, when it came down to, you know, people banging in there or whatnot, you know, I'm down to get down as much as the next guy. You know, I ain't going to let anybody get in my face or try and punk me, you know. So with that being said, I never fronted anybody as far as, you know, hit them up for nothing. You know, the dudes I did beat up, it was because they came at me. And I like to fight. That's just me. You know, I grew up from a wrestling background, and the addiction of winning, you know, that's a big addiction of just winning. So, you know, if someone challenges you, oh, yeah, I'll take that. Let's get it. Let's get the heads. And, you know, my fighting career pretty much started, you know, when I was in prison, and then as soon as I got out, it just blew up.
Right. You keep mentioning wrestling, but you don't have proper cauliflower ears. I don't know that you've done any wrestling at all. I don't know.
I was that good.
You're that good, huh? All right. Yeah, I look at, you know, that's like all the other grapplers. You know, you look at first thing you do when I see a fighter, look at their ears and say, okay, that's a ground fighter, that's a stand-up guy. But yeah, you don't have any cauliflower at all going on. But yeah, I mean, it had to have been, you know, obviously it was a terrible experience, but a good thing for you. But getting out and doing things the right way, you know, is it frustrating for you at all that, you know, that's always brought up, and that's or is it something that doesn't really bother you, and you're okay talking about it because you've done what's right now?
You know, the way I see it, the more success a man has, the more people try to dig in the closet. And, you know, if I hadn't have said nothing about it, then I'm sure people would be like, oh, this dude went to prison for this, that, and he did this much time for doing this. You know what? Like, I ain't got nothing to hide. I'm a straight-up guy. If you need to know something, you could just ask me to my face, and I'll blunt out tell you. You know, I call a spade a spade. I just tell it how it is. If you don't like it, well, then, you know, screw you. That's the type of person I am. There ain't no reason to be round about anything. You know, that's just like with life in general. You know, if life deals you a hard ball, you know, you're gonna go with the shot. You're gonna take it the best you can. You're not gonna go roundabout and say, oh, well, this didn't happen because so-and-so did this or so-and-so did that. Me, I'm the type of dude that's just like, oh, wow, you know, live and learn. Let's get over it. Let's build a bridge and get over this shit.
Yeah. Well, good. So the last thing I want to ask you, since you're such a straight-up dude, you know, you told me before, for those who haven't heard the story, you know, you certainly have some animosity towards one guy out there. So just tell us about, you know, like you said, you know, you're not, you know, you did it. You'll talk about it. It's not something you're proud of, and you're not hiding from it. But you're definitely angered by Frank Trigg and some things he had said about you before. You know, just go over that a little bit, and you know what he said, you know, kind of pissed you off.
Yeah. Once again, you know, it was my first fight on a national level. I signed with Pro Elite, you know, a while back. I think it was a couple years ago. It might have been sooner than that, but I think it was a couple years ago. And we were down in Moline, Illinois, and, you know, everything is just odd to me. I'm in awe and everything because, you know, we had to do our pictures. We had girls rubbing us down with baby oil to take pictures, and then, you know, we had a camera on me, and obviously you can tell when you're interviewing me, I don't like to look at the camera. I'm still camera shy, and I don't know why. I need to get over that. But, you know, I was in front of this camera, and actually, Schiavello was there. Schiavello was right next to him. And, you know, Frank Trigg just kind of looked me up and down, real arrogant, real cocky. And you know, I don't get off on that right away because, you know, who are you to think you're better than me, period? I'm pretty good at reading people, and I read him like a book. And when I started, you know, explaining my background, they were asking me certain things, you know, about my wrestling, and I told them, you know, I wrestled up into a certain date, and then it came to the part where it's like, well, what happened after that? Why didn't you continue your wrestling career? And I was like, yeah, most people went to college, and I ended up going to prison. And then right away, his little antlers perked up, like, oh, I got something on this dude. And so, you know, he told me to elaborate, and I told him exactly what I told you. You know, I went to prison for distribution of methamphetamines, you know. It was my bad. I learned my lesson, whatnot. And he just kind of gave me a dirty look, and he was like, oh, that's a typical Colorado native. Are you done with all the bullshit? What do you mean am I done with the bullshit? Obviously, I'm signed with the national, you know, a national combat league, so why wouldn't I? Like, what kind of questions I have to ask if, you know, to someone who's sitting right in front of you that you see is trying to do good? And he just kind of like smirked and waved me off, and even during the fight, like, he was just making little remarks, like, not even giving me a chance. Basically, the way the same people voted on Travis, you know, not giving me a chance at all. Oh, Alex needs to do that. Alex needs to do this. And, you know, I understand the critic part about it, but I was under the understanding that if you're a promoter, you don't favor one dude or another, vocally, you know what I mean? You wait till the fight's over and been like, oh, yeah, I kind of was pulling for this guy. He's done this, this, and that. But no, this dude favored the guy from the get and was just kind of basically hanging off the dude's nuts, and it just really got under my skin. And I was hoping I didn't have to see him again in Hawaii, because I was going to give him an earful. And, you know, before that is when it came out to where, you know, he ended up choking his wife, and his wife came out on Twitter and all over with, you know, strangle marks around her neck. And I was just like, dude, how dare you judge me after you strangle your wife, you piece of shit. That's basically the hostility I got towards that dude.
All right. Well, you know, that's the thing. You know, what you did wasn't right. It was messed up. It was a terrible thing. But the fact of the matter is that you've acknowledged it. You paid your debt to society, and you're moving on. And you know, make that a negative when you're trying to do what's right is definitely wrong. You know, you need to, you don't want to look past it. But you know, like I said, you're trying to do what's right. So no reason to beat you down when you paid for it and you're moving on. So, you know, it was great hearing your story there, Ryan. You know, you're welcome to stay and talk with Mike. We're going to bring him on, but I know you're at work, I guess, so if you want to get up, that's fine. Do you want to stay or do you got to go?
No, I got to go, man. I'm just walking around here on the facility.
Oh, that's cool. All right. All right, well, just tell us real quick, the folks, you know, you're blowing up there on Twitter and everything, but tell them where they can follow you on the social media and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, you know, just Ryan Martinez, and then you can find me on Twitter at 970King.
All right, Ryan, we appreciate it. Thanks so much. Anything else you want to add before we let you go? You know, we really appreciate having you on, and congratulations. You know, it's a huge victory for you. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank God. I'd like to thank my biggest sponsor, Future Legend, and I'd like to thank Mayweather Boxing for, you know, sharpening up my hands, and Roy Nelson for just everything he's done, man.
All right, buddy, we appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you again here in the heavyweight tournament in a couple months. Appreciate you stopping by.
Right on, man. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
Later.
All right, that was Ryan Martinez, like I said, fresh off his victory at Bellator 93 over Travis Wiuff. A huge victory for him, you know, definitely a career-changing performance. I'm going to go ahead and get Mike Sciavello on here. We're going to play a little music here. I'm doing a solo today, so we're going to have to get some music. I'll be back in a few seconds with Mike. All right, guys, we're back. Again, that was Ryan Martinez. Thanks so much for him joining us. We're going to bring on our next guest here. You know, a guy that everybody knows. You know, unless you're only a UFC guy and are completely dead to the rest of MMA, there's no doubt you know who this guy is. That's why they call him the Voice. Mike Sciavello, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us.
Alex, good to be on the show, mate. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Did you recognize? I don't know if you recognized it or not, but did you recognize the music I had on for you?
No, you know, I didn't recognize it. What was it?
That was some Slim Dusty, the legend of Ned Kelly.
Oh, nice, an absolute classic. Although I never truly understood the Ned Kelly legend myself, even though I am Australian and in Australia he is revered, I sort of can't get behind revering a guy who wore a garbage can on his head and shot policemen. But hey, each to their own.
Well, you know, I don't know much about Ned Kelly myself, but when I was in the Air Force, I was stationed in Korea, and we got Australian MTV, and I heard Slim Dusty endlessly. So I figured I'd look him up and put some Australian music on there for you.
Nice, good work, good to hear.
All right. I was going to talk MMA with you, but I'm doing some Googling on you here, and I see something about this furniture stuff. What's going on there? Can you give me some good deals on office furniture?
Friend of mine, but no relation. Maybe related going many, many generations ago, but he is the other Michael Sciavello in Australia. The strange thing is that I never met the other Michael Sciavello until about 12 years ago or so, when a mutual friend introduced us one night at a bar. And he said to me, he goes, man, I kept getting people asking me when they meet me, are you the Michael Sciavello of Fox Sports? And I'm like, dude, I kept getting people asking me, are you the Michael Sciavello of Office Furniture? So it was really funny when we met. Even though he's like 30 years older than me and 5'2", he's about 60 years old, people still got him confused.
Well, that's kind of a bummer. I guess we're going to have to talk MMA then. I was hoping to give me a good deal on a filing cabinet, but we'll deal with MMA then. It's kind of crazy. You've been around the business forever, and what haven't you been part of? I mean, you've been an announcer for Dream, for K1, for HDNet. I mean, for Legacy FC, Adrenaline. I mean, you've done everything, and I guess that's why they call you the voice. You've done so many things, and the one thing that we definitely know you for are the quotes that you have. I was looking through today, and a couple of my favorites were I really like the one, you talked about, one fight was like Tori Spelling in Playboy, even if no one wants to see it, or even if it happens, no one wants to see it. I love that. Just all the quotes, but recently, obviously this past week you've been quite popular for your comments at Legacy FC. Did you? I'm going to play it here in a second for you, the tape. But did you expect the reaction that the internet and everybody else is giving you towards this Danny Mainus thing?
No, not at all. Just to clarify, it was RFA, Resurrection Fighting Alliance, not Legacy Fighting Championship.
RFA 7. I'm sorry.
It was a show we did live in Denver last weekend.
Get straight.
Don't worry, I commentate so many of them I get them confused as well. But, I didn't expect a reaction. I thought there'd be a little bit of reaction. I tried to commentate it as straight as I possibly could, and I didn't want to make, jokes about it on air. It's just like, hey, that's the dude's name. It's unfortunate that his name is Danny Mainus. And, when you have a surname that's Mainus, it lends itself into, I guess, hilarious commentary. And, I got home on Saturday from Denver, and Saturday night a fan made this little compilation video and loaded it onto YouTube, and, popped up with my name on the Google pop-ups when they happened, and my wife and I watched it and had a laugh. And then the next morning it has like 100,000 views, and by that night it has 200,000 views. Later that night it appears on the Jimmy Fallon show on NBC. The morning after it has 300,000 views, and it's, radio stations everywhere are playing it, and newspapers are writing about it, and every website is writing about it. And, as we speak at the moment, the thing's got over 450,000 views on one YouTube page, another 30,000 on another YouTube page, and I've been doing interviews all day. It's been nuts.
Yeah. So did you know going in, were you looking at his name saying, wow, you kind of touched on it, but were you looking at it saying, wow, that's let me check and get the pronunciation of this name. Is that right? And,
I did.
And did you talk to Pat, and then what happened?
I did. Before the show, the day before the show, we interview all the fighters individually to ask them about their strategies and their training camps to help us with the commentary. And I interviewed Danny Mainus, and it never really jumped out at me. And then the night before we were meant to go live on air, about 10 minutes before we went on air, I turned to Pat Miletich, who's my broadcasting partner, former UFC champion, as your fans will know, and I said, Pat, I pointed to the name. I said, how do you pronounce this? He's like, Mainus. Okay. And then I turned to Andrew Simon, the CEO of Access TV Fights. I said, Andrew, he's the boss. How do you pronounce this? Mainus. Okay, I'm just checking. And then Pat and I sort of said at the start of the show, it'll be really unfortunate if a guy like Danny Mainus with a name like that ends up getting cut during the fight. And the thing is, Alex, that not only did he get cut and bleed everywhere, but everything that could possibly happen in a mixed martial arts fight, and some things I've never seen happen in a mixed martial arts fight, just so happened in this mixed martial arts fight. I mean, I cannot remember the last time I saw a guy double fist punch another guy in a fight. But lo and behold, Mainus gets double fisted, doesn't he? I've never seen two guys get thumbed in the eye, both of them thumb each other at the exact same time. It's never happened in my 20 years of covering fights. But lo and behold, Danny Mainus takes a thumb to the eye as his opponent. Like, everything that could happen did happen.
Well, you know, in a true tribute to your, or you know, credit to your greatness on the mic, you didn't laugh. You kept yourself composed the entire time. How did you do that? And was there a point where you were like, you know, where you and Pat were either one of you just getting ready to bust out laughing?
You know what? I knew as the fight went on, yeah, there was obviously, yeah, I thought, okay, people are going to interpret this humorously. To me to make any anal jokes, any butt jokes, anything like that. It's just, you know, it's humorous enough. The poor dude is named Danny Mainus. And I guess with my accent, it makes it enunciate a little more. The thing was, though, right from the first time I mentioned it during his walkout, Pat started laughing. So I spent the whole fight with my back turned to Pat and making sure I was looking at my monitor, because I couldn't look at Pat. If I did, I would have cracked up. Bad thing about that, Alex, is that next to me was my floor manager, and next to her was my makeup artist, and next to her was my sound manager, and all of them were falling off their chairs laughing as well. So no matter where I looked around, everyone was laughing. And then I turned back around the other way. Andrew Simon, our CEO, has ripped off his headset, and he's laughing, falling out of his chair. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm surrounded here by people laughing at my commentary of Danny Mainus. What am I going to do? Just going to keep going.
Yeah, but I do know, you know, you were aware of at one point, you know, I know a lot of you played, you went along just announced the straight, but at one point Pat asked you, he says, all right, let's keep our eye on the fighters. He said, okay, I'll watch my anus. So I know you were enjoying yourself there. That was my favorite part of the whole fight.
We had fun with it, and the good thing I think to see is that, you know, I was a little bit concerned after this thing started to blow up. That I'm thinking to myself, gosh, how is Danny Mainus going to take this? You know, is he going to get upset that people are laughing over his name, and websites are calling it the most unfortunate name in world sports, and it makes it the most hilarious sports commentary ever? And Danny, you know, one headline was Danny Mainus is the butt of a joke. And I thought, geez, I hope he's got a sense of humor. And then, you know, yesterday Danny Mainus started tweeting about it. He saw himself on the Jimmy Fallon show the other night when the video played, and his Twitter suddenly blew up. And for a guy that's only had 2 fights, you know, over the last 3 days, he's become the most talked about mixed martial arts fighter in the world. So good on him enjoying his moment in the spotlight.
Yeah, you know, and you know, here's a, you know, I'm sure with a name like that, you know, there's nothing that anyone can do on the internet that I'm sure the junior high school and high school kids didn't do. So, you know, I'm sure he's had his share of comments. So, you know, it's good that he has a thick skin and is rolling with it. And like you said, you know, he can use it to his advantage. You know, he'd get more attention than, you know, he probably would otherwise. So, that, you know, that's,
well, you know,
that's good on his part.
If I'm Danny Mainus, I'm using this whole week, and I'm clipping the Jimmy Fallon show, I'm clipping all the websites, I'm clipping all the radio interviews, and hitting up promoters, and especially hitting up RFA again, because I believe he's signed to RFA, and say, hey, you know what, guys, listen, have me on your next show, and, you know, let's see what comes out of the next show that bump me up further on the card, give me some more money. I'm now, you know, one of the best-known names in mixed martial arts. It's not the name that has just gotten Resurrection Fighting Alliance some worldwide publicity over the last few days. So, you know, as you said, if you've grown up with a name like that, and he's probably heard the jokes all throughout, you know, prep school and high school and throughout college or whatever, good on him if he can capitalize on that unfortunate name at this stage in his career.
Well, you know what he needs to do, you know, besides all that, he needs a, you know, clothing line. You got to do something with that. You know, you got to make the money, too. So I'm sure there's some pretty humorous shirts people can come out with there, and you can sell those. All right, we'll move on from that, but I real quick, we'll go ahead, for those that haven't heard it, for the, you know, the 3 people left out that haven't, I'm going to go ahead and play the audio here a little bit, and you know, the quick 1-minute clip where we hear you on the mic. So we'll play that real quick.
Sure.
Section of Mainus. Mainus getting beaten on. We're in trouble here, Mainus. And Mainus has relaxed here, Pat. Right in the back of Mainus. Good defense here from Mainus. Mainus flattened out. Mainus flat on the canvas. We are ready to rock and roll. Second round of action. There is a cut on Mainus. Mainus ready to pounce here. The shoots in early. Mainus defensive. Mainus is in a bit of pain here.
You watch one, I'll watch the other, Michael.
I'll watch Mainus. Australia to be ringside position and just popped in there to look at me.
All right, there was a little taste of
that.
That was hilarious.
The funny thing I hadn't heard before when you played that just now, at one point I say something about Mainus and then a horn sound, so it sounds like I'm saying Mainus, then there's a big flatulent sound. I didn't even notice that before.
I'll have to go back and listen to that myself. That's pretty funny. You know, like, you've been around forever. You've done everything. Well, not forever. You're younger than me, so you haven't been around that long. But you've done so many things. You know, you've done the Olympics. You've done, you know, we'll get some other stuff you're doing now. But just been everywhere. Is this the most attention that you've ever gotten for anything?
I got to say, for probably for one, you know, small thing. The Olympics garnered a lot of attention for being a worldwide event, but for one piece of commentary, I think this is going to be certainly the most attention ever garnered for one bit of commentary, for sure.
All right. Well, next thing I want to talk about, you had your little show you do there on HDNet, Voice Versus. Tell us a little about that. And, well, first of all, tell us how you get, you know, Mark Cuban, an interesting guy, seems really cool. I'm a big fan of Shark Tank, watch it all the time. Tell us what it was like meeting with him and how you got hooked up with HDNet.
As the story goes, this is how I believe the story goes as to how I got hooked up with HDNet, which is now Access TV, of course. In 2008, I was commentating for the K1. And I was doing the K1 Grand Prix live from Tokyo. It was being back on then HDNet at like 4 or 5 in the morning live. And Mark Cuban was, you know, apparently, as the story goes, was watching it live. And I made a comment about Semi Schilt, that I said that Semi Schilt had less personality than a head of lettuce. Now, apparently, this comment made Cuban, you know, spin into laughter watching this live at 4 in the morning. He rang Andrew Simon, the CEO of Access TV Fights, and said, sign up this Aussie dude. And then, you know, a few months later, I was passing through LAX on my way to Jamaica to commentate a show in Montego Bay, and I get a call from Andrew Simon, and he's like, hey, you know, we're big fans of your work, and Cuban's a big fan of your work, and want to know if you want to sign with HDNet and become the voice of our fights. And it all sort of went from there. And, you know, later that year in 2009, we began the Voice Versus series. The first one wasn't even meant to be a Voice Versus. You know, it was with Joe Rogan, who's one of the guys I really love in the sport, and you know, my favourite fight commentator. And Joe was in Sydney for the UFC, and I said to HDNet, I said, listen, we've never had Joe interviewed on the network before. How about I get him for a 5-10-minute interview for Inside MMA, and we'll see how it goes. And they're like, cool. So organised a one-camera shoot in my hotel room, and what was meant to be a 5 to 10-minute interview ended up taking about 75 minutes. And I pitched it to HDNet, and I said, hey, how about we do a show called The Voice versus Joe Rogan. It's me interviewing Joe one-on-one. I think people are going to tune in because Joe and I have never shared the screen before, and it's a sort of dream commentary matchup a lot of people want to see. They went for it, and the show rated really well. And as we go down now, we're in episode 12, just shot yesterday, actually. It was the Voice versus Dana White, which will air sometime over the next few months, and it was amazing. We've had some great guests on the show, including Sugar Ray Leonard and George Foreman and Hulk Hogan and Steven Seagal and Michael Jai White. Dana White was phenomenal. It's just going from strength to strength, and a lot more names that I sort of want to get on there as the year goes on.
Well, I'm sure you're not going to say anything negative, but what's Steven Seagal like? You know, he's a guy that catches a lot of shit on the internet, you know, for taking credit for a lot of things, you know. How did you find him personally? Steven,
I originally got Steven's contact number through a mutual friend, Ray Sefo. Ray's friends with Steven, and I rang Steven about 2 years ago and introduced myself and, you know, talked to him about the show, and he said he'd love to do it and he's going to do it, we'll book it in, etc. And then we managed to book it in and had to jump through a lot of hoops to get it finally organized. And then all of a sudden, you know, Seagal sort of disappeared and stopped answering emails and stopped answering the phone calls, etc., etc. And I've continued to chase him for like 2 years, and, you know, little emails would pop back and forth from his people saying, yes, we'll try and organize this, and, you know, it just never came to fruition. And then towards the end of last year, I cracked it, and I sent Steven an email. I said, listen, dude, I'm over it. I don't want to interview anymore. I officially rescind my offer. You keep bullshitting me around, and I'm over it. I'm going to, you know, chase other people. As soon as I sent that, it must have triggered something, because he responded straight back, and he apologized for his people and how they handled it. And, you know, he started handling it personally, and we did the interview in Scottsdale, Arizona. You know, I really like Steven. I got on really well with him. I thought it was a fantastic interview. Great guy. but I can see why he cops a lot of flack. He's a strange cat. You know, he came to the interview wearing a bulletproof vest under his shirt. He came with a bum bag that had like 5 handguns in it. You know, it was sitting in shot in one of our shots, and my director goes up to Stephen and he goes, "Oh, Stephen, do you mind if I move this bum bag? It's in shot." And Stephen's like, "Sir, be very, very careful with that bag. There are many dangerous things in there that if you drop it, it could hurt all of us." He had like 5 handguns in a bag. You know, it's weird stuff like that. Extremely paranoid, but a hell of a cool guy with an incredible aura about him.
Yeah, he's like you said, he's definitely a strange guy, but you know, he's been around. He's definitely an icon in the industry. You know, I'm similar age to you, just a couple years older, and I grew up watching those you know, Hard to Kill and those movies he did. So definitely interesting guy. I was actually the one quote I was looking for earlier. I blanked out and I couldn't think of it, but I love the one. My favorite one for me probably was, "And there's no such thing as lesbians. There's only women who haven't met Paul Slawinski." I thought that one was one of your best. And do you know, so what, do you sit there and think beforehand, let me make up some quotes, or they just kind of hit you as you're going?
No, just this God-given ability, I suppose, just to hit me as we go. You know, a lot of people ask me that question, and my answer is I can't script this stuff. I mean, it's not pro wrestling. I don't know the outcome of the fights. You know, whether it's I'm calling boxing in the Olympics, I'm calling Muay Thai, kickboxing, martial arts. I never know the outcome of the fight, so I can't deliberately script one-liners or little jokes in there. I've just got this ability that when something happens, they sort of just pop into my mind. And, yeah, I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's something that a gift that I've been given, and I've just managed to capitalize on, I suppose.
Right. So are you a big Jenna Hayes fan?
That probably goes down as, that was a Dream 10 that I made, the Jenna Hayes joke. And, it probably goes down as one of my most memorable lines among fans. And the funny thing with that one, Alex, is that Jenna Hayes actually heard me commentating that, heard that commentary clip, and for quite a few months there, we were tweeting each other in private back and forth about meeting up, and I was always on the road, and she was always on the road, and she had a great sense of humor about it. Seemed like a really cool girl. Never did get to meet up with her, and now that I'm married, probably won't happen.
Exactly. Now, the one thing, like I said, you're an icon in the industry, but you had some crazy partners in your business. You've worked with, one guy we've had on the show, and I know quite well because, working with Jeff Mayweather, I see him around a lot. Mike Kogan, worked with him on Dream. You worked with, of course, you're with Pat now, and he's pretty funny dude. You worked with, who are some of the guys you worked with? Well, first tell us, what were your thoughts on Mike? We had him on. He kind of gave the story. He kind of just fell into it and didn't really know what he was doing. What was it like working with him?
I love Mike. I love him to death. He's a great guy to hang out with. He is one of the funniest, if not the funniest person I've ever met.
But is he really shy? Was it hard to get anything out of him, though? I mean, I know he's a shy guy. He keeps it all in.
Mike Kogan's shy. Oh, my God. You have trouble trying to shut up Mike Kogan. Yeah, unfortunately,
no,
Mike
literally, when he was on, I asked him 2 questions for 45 minutes. That was it. And he just went through the whole time.
The thing with Mike, he has a very crass sense of humor and a very wrong sense of humor that a very politically correct society sometimes cannot handle. I love it. I think it's hilarious. Some people don't sort of get it, but that's Mike Kogan. I really enjoyed working with Mike. We had a lot of adventures around Europe and a lot of adventures in Japan. I don't think I've ever disliked working with anyone. I've worked with, the quietest one I ever worked with was Hoist Gracie. I love Hoist. He's a great guy, but commentating with him, trying to get one word out of him is trying to, squeeze water from a stone. I commentated with former sumo Yokozuna Akabono in Korea once. That was an experience because the dude went out the night before. We went out to dinner, and he slammed down 30 sausages and 10 bottles of beer, and he had the worst case of flatulence ever during the commentary. So you try sitting there for 4 hours straight with a guy who's 7 foot tall, about 450 pounds, is a former sumo grand champion, and he's farting all over the place. That was a hard one to stomach.
I'm sure it was. And then who were some of the guys? I mean, I guess you just recently worked with Ken Shamrock, right? How did that go? I think
that was a shock to me. When I found out, I didn't know until I rocked up in England that I was commentating with Ken Shamrock. I had no idea who I was commentating with, and I rock up the night before Bama, and they go, hey, you're commentating with Ken Shamrock. I'm going, don't you mean Frank? You know, because Frank does it Showtime. They go, no, Ken.
Right.
I go, oh, okay, that's a strange choice. And even the Bama guys were like, yeah, we weren't quite sure, but, you know, Ken's here because of a sponsor, and we really want to try him out. And I'm like, okay, I might have to carry him, though. I never heard him commentate, but that's cool. I've carried a lot of commentators in the past, and if I've got to do it, I've got to do it. Well, lo and behold, the red light switches on. We go on air, and Ken Shamrock out of nowhere becomes this awesome commentator. I mean, he was fantastic. He was just full of life, full of energy, analytically superb, lots of personality, and I'd love to work with Ken again. Real good guy.
Yeah, he's been on our show as well, and then like you said, I mean, as soon as we got on, I was wondering because you get some of these fighters on here, and it's hard to get anything out of them, and then he came on, and he was one of the best interviews I ever had. He was easy to talk to, and ask him a question, he'd give great answers. We really enjoyed having him. The one guy that you're most known with now, I guess, would be Pat Miletich. I met you briefly at the Lucas Matisse and Mike Dallas Jr. fight a few months ago with Pat. What's it like working with him? And you guys hang out outside of the announcing. How important is that? Really, that getting along with someone to helping your connection when you're actually on air.
Well, I've got to say, Pat's the best guy I've ever worked with. And I'm not just saying that because I work with him now, but he's just so easy to work with. And really, I think as a commentator, he's faultless. He just doesn't make mistakes. He analyzes stuff so well. And the thing with Pat is that you can't question the guy's credibility. He was a former UFC champion, and he was a former trainer of great UFC champions. So you can't possibly question his credibility. I always think he's spot on, great personality, down-to-earth guy. We hang out a lot outside of the fights when we're on the road. We're also both Freemasons, so we have that in common as well. We visited Freemason lodges while we've been abroad on the road, and it's a subject we love to discuss and sit down at dinner and talk about ad nauseum sometimes. And I love hanging out with Pat. I get on really well with him. He's low maintenance, and I think a superb specialist commentator.
Yeah. And the one thing is there's probably, 4 or 5 people in the world that are more outspoken than you, and you commentated with, 3 of them?
Pretty much.
Mike, Pat, and Ken,
And Mayhem Miller as well. And I've got to say, for all of Mayhem's shortcomings and strangeness over the last 18 months or so, when I was commentating King of the Cage with Mayhem and Dynamite with Mayhem, I thought he was one of the best color guys I've ever worked with. I think that guy's personality comes out on camera and on microphone just brilliantly, and I wouldn't hesitate working with Mayhem again. I love that dude.
Yeah, he seems to have a personality for TV. I know he's done quite a bit of stuff, like on MTV, did the Bully Beatdown and stuff like that. So yeah, he definitely seems to have the personality for it. And sometimes it might not work when you're actually fighting, but what doesn't work there is great for being in front of the camera. As far as the events you worked, like I said, you've done so many things, so many different organizations. What is the one event? No, I'll take the Olympics out of it. But as far as MMA, what is the one event that was the biggest event you were a part of that you just, kind of really stood out for you?
If you limit it to MMA, I mean, the Olympics was obviously the big one, and doing the Contender Asia, of course, was big. But MMA, I think for me, doing Dynamite 2009, 10, actually, my first Dynamite was back in 2006. So 2006 through to 2011, doing Dynamite every New Year's Eve was just an extraordinary experience. It brought out in me the little kid that grew up loving pro wrestling, grew up in the early WWF days, because the presentation of Dynamite and the fact that you'd have freak shows on there and crazy matchups and style versus style and the most crazy ring entrances and music and live orchestras and live bands. And, it brought out the little kid in me and the excitement in me. And I don't think any other mixed martial arts event in the world. And, I've been to all the big MMA shows all over the place, but nothing compares to what Dynamite used to do every New Year's Eve. To me, that was always the one I really looked forward to the most in mixed martial arts.
All right. Now you mentioned there that you grew up a WWF fan. And I read when I was doing my Google research on you, you got to interview Junkyard Dog. How was the late Junkyard Dog? How was that? He was one of my favorites growing up.
Oh, man, that was, good research on that one. That was when I was 16 or 17 years old. It was one of the first ever. He was the first the second ever wrestler I interviewed. The first was Mario Milano. Second was JYD, and it was for a local sports radio station I was working for back when I was 17. Interviewed him at the Hilton Hotel in Melbourne, and I remember walking into his hotel room, and he just finished breakfast, and there was all this food on the table, and he was bare-chested, had his top off for whatever reason he had his top off. I'm sure a lot of us sit around in our hotel rooms just randomly with our tops off when people come to interview us. But I remember thinking to myself, gosh, this is the biggest human being I've ever seen. He was huge, and obviously by a lot of other wrestlers out there, he wasn't that big, but to a raw, wet behind the ears 17-year-old he was, and a lovely guy, absolute gentleman, lovely guy. I was very saddened when I heard years later that he passed away. I've interviewed a lot of wrestlers since then, but I think JYD always sort of stands out in my memory as my first international wrestler, and just a hell of a nice guy. That there's always a risk, Alex, and you'll know this working in media as well, and you'll know this working in mixed martial arts media. If you love a particular sport, or you love a particular band, or you love a particular movie, there's always a risk in interviewing someone associated with what you love. Now, you grew up a fan of JYD as I grew up a fan of JYD. You probably grew up a fan of Hulk Hogan as I did a fan of Hulk Hogan. These are guys that I've interviewed. We were fans of Steven Seagal when we were younger. I've interviewed Jackie Chan. I've interviewed Jean-Claude Van Damme. I was fans of those guys when I was growing up. There's always that trepidation when you interview these people who, as a youngster, you put up on a pedestal, used to adore, used to admire, and you think to yourself, gosh, I hope they're not going to be an asshole. I hope they're not going to treat me badly, because then that would just tarnish my opinion and my view of them for the rest of history. And, God, I couldn't imagine if Hulk Hogan was a prick to me. I think to myself, I could never go back and watch the old WrestleManias or the SummerSlams or the Royal Rumbles again. I couldn't do that, and I love doing that. It's always a trepidation interviewing someone like that. And, thankfully, throughout my career, touch wood, I've always had guys that have been, heroes of mine as a kid that I've interviewed that have lived up to that hero status that I once put on them.
Right. And actually, I used to do security, quite a while ago, and I had the coolest thing I ever got to do is I got to work backstage at several WCW and WWE events, and I saw firsthand, a lot of those guys that you really, really think are cool turn out to be total asses, just like, then other ones you think, they might be jerks, turn out to be the nicest people you'll ever meet. I remember, like, Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, exactly, I know what you're saying. I was backstage at a WCW event when they came to Melbourne, back in like 2000 or 99. And one of my big guys that I absolutely love was Goldberg, Bill Goldberg. And I got the chance to hang out with Goldberg for a couple of nights in a row, and he couldn't have been nicer. But being backstage there, and, I remember someone like Kevin Nash. Nash wasn't sort of the nicest guy. He'd never been one of my wrestling favorites, fortunately, but he just wasn't, backstage he wasn't one of the nicest guys. And a lot of the guys backstage just didn't like him. Sting was the opposite. Sting was a pretty cool guy. Booker T, when I met him, was a pretty cool guy. It just depends on the different people. But it can be really disheartening if you meet someone that you grew up admiring and loving, for them to treat you like a second-class citizen when you actually meet them or shake their hands. And, I especially hope that doesn't happen to any fellow journalists. I especially hope it doesn't happen to any kids out there. I could just imagine my nephew or my nieces, especially my nephew, meeting a wrestler that he loves and that wrestler being a prick to him. That would break my heart, man.
Yeah, I was a little older, like, Chris Jericho brought me water. He was cool. Kurt Angle, nice as could be. I remember Alita was cool, but some of them, the ones that were bad. Chyna was there. She was terrible. Rest in peace. No one threw him under the bus, but Crash Holly was not the nicest guy. Like you said, Kevin Nash. I worked the last WCW event. I can't remember the pay-per-view, but the last one before they closed down was also the same day that Dale Earnhardt died. But I was backstage for there. Like I said, Nash wasn't very nice. Buff Bagwell, who has a reputation for being a jerk, he certainly was when I was around. Not the nicest guy. Another guy was there, Mike Awesome, still alive at the time. Now, he was very nice. And, yeah, like you said, it's just kind of, strange when you get to see the personalities behind, the McMahons were all nice as could be. But it was cool getting to, see them out of character, So that was definitely an interesting experience for myself. And like you said, it's, I've interviewed a lot of guys, and fortunately, almost always, I'm happy with when I meet them, how nice they actually are. A couple people big time me and that kind of thing.
I agree with you. I agree. I think generally, 99% of guys that I've met And like I said, most of the guys I've interviewed have been nice. You know, the one that sort of sticks out for me, and US fans, your US audience might not be aware of who he is, but there's a very famous Australian rock star called Jimmy Barnes, who used to be part of one of the greatest Australian rock bands ever called Cold Chisel. And when I was growing up, Jimmy Barnes was my man. I used to listen to Jimmy Barnes. I bought all his, cassettes back then and his CDs when they became CDs. I went to his concert once, at the Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne. And years later, when I was doing some work for a martial arts magazine, I found out that Jimmy Barnes actually trained in Zendo Kai Karate, and thought, okay, that'd be a great interview to organise and talk to Jimmy Barnes, this rock star, about his martial arts training. I did a phone interview with Jimmy, and the interview went well enough, and then I had to ring him back for something else after the interview, I think to try and organise some photos or for some other media clips or something like that. And he was just an absolute knob, he was a prick, and it was unexpected. And I was probably only 21 at the time, 20, so I was still pretty young and pretty impressionable. And the thing, like I said before, now, I find it difficult when a Jimmy Barnes song even comes on the radio to be able to listen to it and enjoy it anymore. And it's just unfortunate because, maybe he was in a bad mood, or maybe he was drinking or doing whatever, but his one little moment of a bad mood with me sort of put a lifelong fan off listening to him again. It was sort of, a little bit disheartening for me.
Yeah. And actually, the one boxer, one of the first guys I met, my favorite person to this day, the nicest person I've ever met is Australian, was Cali Meehan. I don't know if you know him, but super guy.
Yeah, Cali's a nice guy. Cali's a lovely guy.
Yeah, he was out here training with Jeff for a while. He was having problems with Don King, couldn't get a fight, had to go back there. I think he's done, but his sons are actually were playing rugby out there, and then now they're heading to boxing, and there's some beasts out there. But Cal, yeah, nicest guy I think I've ever met. Inside or outside of boxing, just a really, really cool guy. Just one more quick on that, and then I want to tell you one story I want from you, and then we'll wrap it up. But touching on that, is there any one guy that you thought went the opposite way, that you thought was going to be a total ass? You're like, man, I'm kind of dread interviewing this guy, and then it turned out totally opposite, nice as it could be?
That's a really, really good question. I did have some reservations about Steven Seagal just because I'd heard all the horror stories about him and about his personality. And, like we got on like a house on fire. So that, might have been there. Dana White yesterday, I'd heard stories about Dana White, not treating some media people so kindly and, maybe being a bit hard to get on with, and seeing that Access TV doesn't cover UFC, when I show any UFC, fights or anything. I thought, well, I hope he gives me a good interview, and he gave me a great interview, and he was a hell of a nice guy. I can't speak, highly enough about his character. No, yeah, that's a really tough question.
Yeah.
It is. Probably the closest would be Steven Seagal.
Yeah. Well, how was Danny? That's kind of interesting because, here's a guy that, is part of the biggest promotion of all the MMA, UFC's king right now. And, here he is with you, a guy that's announced for everybody but UFC. So how was that? You said he was nice enough, but, was he, how did he react? He was just pretty cool with you?
Dude, he was fantastic, man. He walks in and introduces himself and, starts talking about all the artwork in his office and starts chit-chatting. And the interview, there was, he never rushed me for a moment. Sometimes you feel that people are rushing you and they want to get the interview over and done with. And I feel like I could have sat there and talked for 2, 3, 4 hours with Dana, and he wouldn't have got up off his seat and been rushed. And, even after the interview, he thanked me and he enjoyed it and said it was well researched, and we chatted a little bit more. And just a real hell of a nice guy. And, like you were mentioning, that trepidation that I had, given that, I've worked for every promotion out there but the UFC, and on Access TV has, quite famously in the past, there's been some differences between Dana and Mark Cuban in the past. Cuban, of course, the owner of Access TV. All that has been quashed now, but, you can't help but have it in the back of your head. It's like, well, okay, this is Dana White, 1-hour interview. First time he's ever been on Access TV for an hour. It's going to be the longest he's ever been on there. Maybe one of his longest TV interviews ever. Is it going to be a good one, or am I just going to get yes and no answers? And he was fantastic. I can't rave highly enough about the guy. He was just a genuinely cool, interesting dude to hang out with.
Right. All right, well, the last thing I want to talk about before I'd like to hear the story from you, because that was pretty funny. When I was reading a blog you did about you mentioned Ray Sefo earlier. So a little trip there in Amsterdam to the red light district with him and Peter Aerts. Can you tell us about that story and what was that like? Because I won't tell my story, but I went to the red light district and had a very humiliating experience at the red light district there in Frankfurt, Germany.
So did I. It was many years ago.
But go ahead and tell us about that story.
Well, it was 2007, 8, somewhere around there, in Amsterdam, and Peter Aerts, the K1 great, rings Ray and I and says, "Hey, I'm going to take you guys out tonight to the red light district, which is the heart of Amsterdam." Which, mind you, for those who haven't been to Amsterdam, you think red light district is just all hookers and marijuana and mushrooms. It is, but it's also the most beautiful part of Amsterdam. You've got all these beautiful lamplit canals, gorgeous cobblestone paths. It is absolutely gorgeous. And so Peter takes us out that night, and we hit the town, and Peter's got a cigarette box full of joints in his inside pocket, and he's offering joints around. And I'm not a big smoker of marijuana. It's just not me. I'm just not into it. But I thought, hey, you know what? When in Rome, do as the Romans do, they say. So, I shared a joint with Peter Aerts, and it was all good. And we end up at this place called the Banana Bar, and we enter through the back door, and it was a little bit of Goodfellas style. The bouncers, when they see Peter Aerts approaching, they grovel at his feet, because Peter Aerts is a legend in Amsterdam. So back doors open and kitchen doors open, and we're ushered through, and 15 minutes later, I'm up on the stage with a couple of strippers firing dildos out of their girl bits at me and making me eat bananas with whipped cream on them out of other girl bits, and that was quite embarrassing. We went downstairs, and there's hooker windows everywhere. These small, mirror-sized windows where all the hookers are standing in them, and there are miles and miles and miles of them. And in some areas of Amsterdam, you've got the gorgeous young, prostitutes, 20, 21, 22, Romanian, Polish, Russian, Bulgarian in one section. Then further down you go, you get the ones that look like chicks off National Geographic with breasts drooping down to their legs and C-section scars running down their stomachs. Disgusting, right? So anyway, I'm standing there near one of the really hot spots, and I take my camera out, and I start snapping photos. And you're not allowed to snap photos of the hookers in Amsterdam. It's forbidden. If you do that, a big black burly security guard comes out from behind a corner, grabs your camera, and smashes it. And this is told to you in most guidebooks you'll read. Do not take photos of the hookers. I took a couple of photos. This hooker, spotted me, and she starts pounding on her window. She's like, "Security, security, security." 3 big, burly beefcakes come tearing up in front of us, running around from a corner right up to me. And then, as they're about to approach me and put hands on me, they recognize that I'm standing next to Peter Aerts and Ray Sefo. And so they've just backed off completely, and they're like, "Oh, Peter, we didn't realize it's you. Sorry to bother you. Hope you have a great night. It's okay." And they wander off. And this hooker's just got this weirded out look on her face. And I turn to Peter and I go, "Can I take more pics?" And Peter's like, Peter's got this big booming voice. He's like, "Ha, ha, ha, Mikey, take as many photos as you want." She goes, "You know what? Go inside there, go in the window and bang the hooker, and I'll take photos of you with the hooker." It was just one of those hilarious moments you don't forget, just walking around the red light district with Peter Aerts, who's like the most connected man in Amsterdam. It was just an unforgettable night.
I was hoping for your a better Peter Aerts impression, though, based on your writing. It was pretty hard to understand him.
He is hard to understand. You know what the Swedish chef from the Muppets sounds like? We can only understand words intermittently between the Burgerburgers. Well, that's what Peter Aerts sounds like. And I'm told by Dutch people that when he speaks Dutch, he sounds exactly the same too. You can hardly understand him in Dutch. But that said, you asked me before some of the nicest guys I've met. Peter Aerts is like the nicest guy on the planet. I love that guy to death. He is just, I used to hang with him on the K1 circuit for years all over the world, and you'd always know when Peter was around, because even from 500 meters away, you'd hear him coming, because he's always cracking jokes, and he always has this big, monstrous laugh you can hear from half a mile away, and I absolutely adore that guy.
Yeah, and I guess when you're walking around with Ray Sefo and Peter Aerts, you feel like a badass, right? You got a big mouth going there talking trash to anybody when you got them having your back.
You feel kind of confident. Let me say that. If there was one guy I wanted by my side in a dark alley that I knew would try and protect me with his life, it had to be Ray Sefo.
Yeah. You know what, real quick, I'll just say mine real quick. I'll go ahead and embarrass myself. We were in Germany. I was in the military, and we did the same thing. We just said, well, we'll go right like this. We're hammered, you know, but I had no problem, you know, hooking up. You know, I was in the military overseas, so, you know, a lot of people, girls want to hook up. But so we go around walking, and like you said, you know, I see midgets, I see ugly girls, I see whatever, and I'm like, well, I'm not paying for none of that. But then all of a sudden I see twins, and I'm like, whoa, now there's a different story. You know, when you I had no intention of partaking, but when you see twins, you know, that's a whole different story. So I'm like, oh man, I'm already hammered.
It is an amazing experience. I mean, even living here in Vegas, and you know, Vegas is known as Sin City, and this is a pretty crazy place, but it does not compare to some of the places in Europe. And some of the craziness you see over there, and the just vast array of people. And if people really want to trip out and have a great time, especially if you're young and you're single, I do suggest, instead of thinking of saving your money and coming to Vegas, just jump over the water and go to Amsterdam. Do yourself a favor. It is absolutely crazy, an amazing place.
Yeah. And then the worst part of that was that they get me in there, we negotiate the price. It's like all the money I had. They get me on the bed, and then they say, yeah, we want $200 more. We're not doing anything. No more money. So that was it. So I guess they figured I had more. I'd pull it out because I'm already there and ready to go, and there's twins. I had nothing else. I said, well, we're not doing anything. Bye. So I got nothing. I lost $200. You know, what are you going to do? You're in Amsterdam, or I was in Frankfurt. You know, you're not going to ask for a refund. You know, you get your ass beaten thrown in the alley. So it's kind of like, so yeah, I got humiliated, lost $200, and that was it.
Not that I can speak from experience. I never did partake. However, I am told that in Amsterdam the going rate is €50, and that is until you do your business.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get to do any business. It cost me $200, but oh well. You know, it was my one and only time. I learned my lesson. You know, hey Mike, we appreciate having you on, and we wanted to bring you on. You know, I talked about you and Pat coming on the Jeff Mayweather show to talk boxing. I want to line that up real quickly. You know, in the next couple weeks, if you're down with that, and we'll bring some big boxers on and talk boxing, because I know Pat doesn't like to talk MMA as much as he likes boxing, so we'll bring you on for that. And we appreciate the stories tonight. You were incredible to have on. You know, real quick, for the folks that want to follow you that might not know where, tell them about your social media type stuff, Facebook, Twitter, or whatever.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Alex. It's, you know, at Schiavello Voice on Twitter. You can add me on Facebook as well, and also the official website if anyone needs to contact me for anything, or just check out video clips and bios and photos and the rest of it, is michaelsciavello.net. And, mate, thank you very much for the interview. It's the first time on your show, and, you know, I do so many of these sort of radio interviews, and I really do appreciate it when someone like you is so thoroughly prepared and so well presented. And, you know, being an interviewer myself, I know that it takes a lot of preparation, that people don't realize how prepared and researched you need to be to conduct an interview, especially a long feature interview like this one today. So I really do appreciate it. And anytime you want me back on, you got my number, give me a call. I'd love to be back on.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it. And one thing people don't realize, too, is that, you know, it's not just sitting around having a conversation. Half the time you're looking at switchboards, talking to other people, trying to line something up, looking at something on the computer, trying, you know, so it is definitely difficult. And, you know, people like you make it seem so easy. And I haven't been doing it that long, you know, just you know, about a year now, and I'm learning as I go. But I appreciate the compliment from you, and thanks so much for coming on. But like I said, we'll definitely get you back on and on the Jeff show here, Jeff Miller show in a couple of weeks. Thanks so much, Mike. Anything else you want to add before you go?
All good, brother. Thank you very much, and look forward to being on with you again, mate. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, that was Mike Sciavello. In the first half of the show, we had Ryan Martinez, fresh off his Bellator 93 victory over Travis Wiuff. Thanks so much to both guys. Great show tonight. Check us out next week, and we'll be back with a couple other really cool guests. Take care.